This morning, new details on the elaborate ruse to whisk President Trump out of Turkey last month amid concerns of an Iranian assassination plot. A U.S. official telling NBC News the threat included the possibility of the Iranian regime targeting the president with a shoulder-fired missile, adding this is probably the most unprecedented level of alertness we've ever been at. Overnight, the president was asked if he was worried about missiles targeting him.
I don't worry about anything, to be honest. Whatever it is, you know my attitude? Whatever.
The U.S. official says the president and his team huddled during the last few hours of the NATO summit in Turkey, making the snap decision at the urging of the Secret Service and the military.
I just follow what they'd like to do. So I go by Secret Service and the military.
The president had flown to Turkey in that new Qatari gifted jet, but the White House had raised eyebrows by abruptly announcing he'd take an older plane home, sending the new Air Force One ahead to a British airbase. Here, the president boarding the old Air Force One. Then, as the camera pulls back, you can see a catering truck parked behind it. Minutes later, a small group of reporters unwittingly boards what would become a decoy jet, and were told to keep their window shades closed, according to the press pool report. As the president was secretly moved to that catering truck, which drives away minutes later, the decoy jet thought to be carrying the president then takes off near the smaller military plane he was on board instead.
I guess there was a threat out there. I didn't really ask too much about it. I get a lot of threats.
The U.S. official telling NBC News that Cabinet Secretaries Marco Rubio and Scott Bessent, as well as other senior staff, remained on board the decoy plane, while Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth joined President Trump.
The plane that I flew on was at greater risk. I think it was at greater risk because that would be the plane I think that they would be more likely to go for.
All right, so the president there confirming the swap. Gabe, let's pivot here and talk about some other breaking news. Overnight, the arrival of this Marine veteran who'd been in prison in Russia for several years. What do we know about his condition this morning?
Yes, Craig, that's right. Robert Gilman returned to the U.S. overnight. The president says the former Marine was released on a humanitarian basis after a conversation with President Putin. The president posted this picture of Gilman on the flight home after spending years in a Russian prison. Now, he was initially jailed for attacking a Russian police officer, and later his sentence was extended 10 years after an alleged clash with a prison guard. His family says Gilman is in dire health after allegedly being tortured. Now that he's home, he's being evaluated and treated in Texas, and according to the president, Gilman told him the first thing he wanted was a great cheeseburger. And the White House says, as promised, he got one overnight.
All right. All right, good to hear that. Glad he's home. Gabe Gutierrez from the White House. Gabe, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you can catch the Today Show every morning on NBC or take Today when you're on the go. Just follow the Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.